Hey everybody, Dr. James Smith here, and I just wanted to share with you some ideas. I'm going to discuss a term that has become more and more popular in pop psychology, and like most things that kind of become popular in our cultural zeitgeist, its meaning has gotten confused, a little twisted, so that this term is often misused. And the term that I'm wanting to talk about is gaslighting. I'm going to talk about where it came from, what it means, and how it is often misused, and how we can avoid the problematic use of this term. The term gaslighting is adopted from a stage play originally written in 1938. This stage play was adapted into several films since then, including a modern version. Of course, with each adaptation, the story changes slightly, but to give an idea of the concept, we'll go with the 1944 version starring Charles Boyer, Ingrid Bergman, and making her major film debut, Angela Lansbury. The movie is set in London in 1875, and it tells the story of a young woman, Paula, who marries a gentleman, Gregory. Paula, played by Ingrid Bergman, is wooed and married shortly after the murder of her aunt. And unknown to Paula, her new husband um, is the murderer of her aunt. He killed her in an attempt to rob Paula's aunt of some precious jewels. Gregory was unable to find the jewels the night he murdered Paula's aunt, and Paula, of course, inherited her aunt's estate. So Gregory woos and marries Paula so that he can re-enter the estate to look for those jewels. And once they move back into Paula's aunt's estate, Gregory begins to engage in these malicious activities against Paula uh, to provoke Paula into doubting her own sanity. So, like he does things, like he hides things from her and denies she ever owned them. He removes pictures from the wall and tells her that she's the one that moved them. At one point, he hides his own pocket watch in Paula's handbag and then accuses her of stealing it from him. Gregory also publicly humiliates Paula to get other people to doubt Paula's sanity. And all of this malicious behavior is to make Paula believe that she's crazy and to make others believe that Paula is crazy so that he can have Paula institutionalized in an asylum and have the run of the estate so that he can go look for the jewels. And the name of the movie, Gaslight, comes from Paula's experience of the gas lamps in the home dimming when Gregory sneaks into their attic to search for the jewels that he was unable to secure when he murdered Paula's aunt. Eventually, an inspector of Scotland Yard recognizes who Gregory really is, a criminal named Sergius Bauer, and he rescues Paula. After this, the term gaslight became a pop psychology term to describe behaviors perpetrated against someone for the purpose of getting the target of the behaviors to doubt their own sanity. So, what is gaslighting then? We're going to use this definition. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation that occurs when one person engages in a pattern of behavior that undermines another person's ability to trust their interpretation of reality. So let me repeat that. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation that occurs when one person engages in a pattern of behavior to undermine another person's ability to trust their interpretation of reality. There's some interesting and complex concepts in this definition that need to be taken apart. And I'd like to use this image over here it's made its rounds on social media to understand these concepts. And the first concept is reality. So what is reality, right? This is one of the longest and deepest philosophical questions that we face as human people. We're going to think about it this way. The reality of a thing is that which it is within itself. The reality of a thing is that which it is within itself. And so in the image here, there's a number on the ground between the two men. It is there and it represents something. We now live in a culture that accepts the concept perception is reality. No, it's not. Perception is perception and reality is reality. And those two things are not the same. As a matter of fact, the phrase perception is reality was coined by Lee Atwater in the 1980s. Lee Atwater was a Republican political strategist for Ronald Reagan. He coined the phrase not to describe some profound truth that human beings can construct reality based on how we perceive it, but to describe how easy it is to manipulate people in politics and marketing. He was using it to describe that all political candidates had to do was build a perception of their opponent in public opinion, and people would believe it was reality, whether the perception was true or not. So in this meme, there's a number on the ground. That is the reality. It is what it is. One person perceives the number as a 6. The other perceives it as a 9. They each assert their perception. So far, so good. Reality and perception. The number is what it is. It is either a 6 or a 9. Each one of them sees it differently and they assert their perception. But to be able to function effectively in the world, we must be able to tell the difference between our perception and reality. We must be able to self-reflect and question our perceptions. We have to question our own interpretations and see whether they align with reality or not. And where they do not align with reality, we need to rethink them, realign them. In other words, to be able to effectively navigate my life, I must make sure I see the world as the world really is, not just how I think it is or how I feel it is. So each of these individuals in the meme have stated their perception, and the number is either a 6 or a 9. So this is what people who engage in gaslighting behaviors refuse to do. They refuse to accept any interpretation of an experience other than their own. You see, a person with a healthy, open mindset can look at an event and say, well, this is what happened, and this is what I feel about it, and this is what I think about it, but I need to make sure that what I feel and what I think is accurate. When a person with a healthy, open mindset realizes that what they think and feel about something is in reality, they adjust what they are thinking or feeling. When they realize that what I think and what I feel about this is not correct, I need to adjust what I think and what I feel, right? I need to change what I think and what I feel about it, because what I think and what I feel about it is misaligned, it's inaccurate, right? So they adjust what they're thinking or feeling. A healthy, open mindset is a balance between self-trust and self-doubt. And we hold both. We understand we are really having the experience we are having, And we know that the experience we are having might not be fully aligned with reality. My perception is not the only perception. My interpretation is not the only interpretation. So, a person with a healthy open mindset, like this person says it's a 6 and the other says it's a 9, right? So, a person with a healthy uh, open mindset says it's a 6. And the other person would respond, well, it looks like a 9 to me, and I can see how it looks like a 6 to you. So let's explore and see if there are clues to help us know which it is. A person who engages in gaslighting behaviors is incapable of doing this. What they think and what they feel about something, as far as they are concerned, is the reality of that thing, and they refuse to allow any other interpretation. They then expect that you will acquiesce to their interpretation, accept it without question. Furthermore, they will cling to their interpretation of reality and assert their perception as the only possibility, even if there is significant rational and physical evidence that proves their perception or interpretation is inaccurate. So even if I point out that there are 2 other numbers next to it that indicate that this is indeed a 6, the other person will continue to deny it. Well, obviously, those other numbers are in a different font than the one that's between us, so they don't have anything to do with it. So it's still a 9. Gaslighting is insisting that one's interpretation of reality is the only interpretation, despite evidence to the contrary, and with the purpose of getting the other person to doubt themselves. There are multiple strategies by which one may gaslight another. I'm going to go through some of the more common ones now. So, the first strategy that people will use to gaslight is what we call denial of reality. And it's kind of what I just demonstrated. Denying reality is a tactic where a person flat out rejects facts, events, and other experiences that did happen with the person, of causing the other to second guess themselves. They're trying to get the other person to second guess themselves. And this can occur through many means. One is by rejecting clear evidence. There's a 5 here and a 7 here. They're aligned. This is obviously a 6, right? But they'll reject that. Oh, those don't have anything to do with this, right? So they will reject clear evidence. An example of this might also be like if I had a text message or an email from someone in which they give me specific instructions or made some statement, and when I show it to them, they will deny that they wrote it or said it. Sometimes they may lie to cover it up, like someone else must have gotten my phone and typed that, right? Another example of denying reality is rewriting history. In this instance, a person will give a very confident and false retelling of a shared experience designed to make me second guess my memory. And one last form of denying reality is it's a little trickier. It's when a person uses their feelings as proof of something without considering the facts of the situation. So you show up late because there was a traffic accident, right? And the person you were supposed to meet says, I feel like you don't care about me, and refuses to accept the fact that you were late because of a traffic accident. In this, their feelings become their reality, and they reject any logical and factual explanation that doesn't align with what they feel. Then, Another form of gaslighting is distortion. Distortion is when a person takes something and twists the meaning of it to shift the conversation, to shift blame, shift the conversation, shift blame, to reframe events, again, with the purpose of getting the other person to second guess themselves. So, for example, I might say to a friend, yeah, I was kind of disappointed when you had to cancel our plans last week. And then my friend would respond, so you're saying I'm irresponsible? So you see how they've shifted, they've distorted what I've said, right? A person may call you a derogatory name, and when you respond negatively, they tell you they were just joking and you shouldn't be so sensitive. So now they've shifted the focus from the insult that they levied against you to your reaction, right? Again, they may retell a story of a conflict, for example, and leave out their own aggressive behaviors from their retelling. And this is to make it seem like you're the problem. Minimization is when someone downplays or trivializes someone's feelings, experiences, or concerns. They ask you why you're making such a big deal of something. They may violate your boundaries and then ask you why you care what they do. Maybe they have a repeated pattern of some hurtful or negative behavior. And when you point it out, they say, oh, it only happened once. Like, well, no, it happened 7 times, right? We have blame shifting. Blame shifting is exactly what it sounds like. They shift responsibility for their behaviors to another person. I wouldn't have had to yell if you weren't so annoying, right? I wouldn't have needed to break it if you had just put it away. Or maybe they shift the blame to some amorphous stressor in their life. You know that I get more upset when I'm stressed. Or they may reverse the roles. You bring up a behavior of theirs that is problematic in the relationship, and they respond saying that you're the problem for bringing it up. And this is very closely related to the next one, which is deflecting. Deflection is about shifting the focus of the conversation away from their own behaviors. Again, so they don't have to take responsibility for anything they have done. For example, you might tell someone that you asked them a question. You ask them a question, they ignore you. You say, hey, I asked you a question, they didn't respond. And instead of apologizing and paying attention, they tell you, well, I don't like when you're on your phone, so let's talk about that. Right? If they forget an important thing, they will mention something you've forgotten and want to focus on that. You forgot this. Or maybe they'll put it back on you. If you express a concern, they'll tell you they don't like your tone and you need to be nicer to them, or that you're being too emotional. Stonewalling is shutting down communication. You bring up a concern and the person responds, I'm not talking about this. Or the person may not respond at all. You might ask a direct question and the person responds, whatever. You might explain that you're bothered by something and the person says, I have no idea what you're talking about. They'll accuse you of not listening to them. You bring up an issue and then they try to deflect and that doesn't work. You bring it back to the issue and then they say, well, you're not listening to me because you want to stay on the issue that you brought up and not allow the deflection, right? The purpose of stonewalling is to make you feel like your concerns are unimportant. It's to shut down any communication that the other person doesn't want to have. Evidence tampering is exactly what it sounds like. Maybe your significant other sends you a nasty text message. You see it, and then later it's gone because your partner got into your phone and deleted it. You might catch them watching pornography or something on the computer, and then they erase the computer history. They might break something valuable to you and then throw it away and not tell you about it, hoping you won't notice. Isolation is often used. When I think of isolation, I think of Luna Lovegood's comment to Harry Potter. Uh, remember, Harry Potter is feeling alone. He's feeling isolated. Luna explains, this is in the Order of the Phoenix. And Luna explains to Harry that if she were you-know-who, she would want Harry to feel isolated and alone, because then Harry's not as much of a threat. So people who gaslight you might not give you the message that someone called or stopped by. They might try to tell you that someone isn't really your friend, or they might bring up that someone you trusted gossiped about you to undermine your trust in the other person. They want you to feel alone, because then you're not as much of a threat to them. And then there's triangulation. Triangulation is when the person perpetrating the gaslighting behavior gets another person to be an ally in their behaviors. They may do this by lying about you to the other person, or telling someone else that you're not really trustworthy, or telling someone else about mistakes that you've made. They may do this by embarrassing you in public so that others will laugh about the situation, which makes you feel ashamed or denigrated. These are all common gaslighting types of behaviors that are all for the same purpose: to get the target of the behaviors to doubt themselves and their understanding of reality. And there's one more gaslighting behavior, though, that I want to bring up. The final type of gaslighting behavior I want to address is projection. And this is the actual deeper motivation I have for making this video. Projection is when a person attributes their own feelings, motives, or behaviors to the other person. Instead of owning their own feelings, thoughts, or behaviors, they accuse the other person of feeling, thinking, or doing what they themselves are doing. This includes gaslighting. This is why projection is so insidious and really the core of what gaslighting behavior is. So the person will tell you that they feel like you betrayed them, putting you into a defensive position. And when you try to defend yourself, they will accuse you of gaslighting them. They will lie to you. And when you call their dishonesty out with facts, they will accuse you of gaslighting them because you don't accept what they're saying without question. They will engage in some kind of manipulation to try and control your behavior. And when you refuse to go along, they will accuse you of trying to control them. The problem is that they have confused their internal world with the external reality of what is happening. And this results in them not allowing for any interpretation of events other than the one they have already defined. This is the key. This is the key, and it goes back to what I said earlier. Gaslighting behaviors are when a person solidifies their interpretation. They only allow their interpretation of events. And when there is evidence to the contrary of what they believe, they reject the evidence and cling to their interpretation, so that for the person engaging in gaslighting, their interpretation is reality as far as they're concerned. Their perception is reality as far as they're concerned. But we, of course, understand interpretation and perception are not reality. So the question then becomes, how does one respond to a person engaging in gaslighting behaviors? And that's a great question. How do we respond to someone engaging in gaslighting behaviors? I'm going to offer you this acronym. When you're dealing with someone who uses gaslighting, be a brat. B-R-A-T. So let's use that as a guide to our response. First, just breathe. When someone starts gaslighting you, you want to slow down and not be reactive. Remember, the purpose of gaslighting is to get you to lose yourself. So don't. Just breathe. Just breathe. Ground yourself in what you want to discuss. Don't let the person distract or deflect. Don't let them shift blame. Don't let them, don't accept the responsibility. You want to talk to this person about something that was important to you. Stay focused on that and don't accept a response that does not address this. And in order to maintain this level of focus on the topic you want to address, it is up to you to keep yourself focused. And breathing helps us stay calm, and staying calm helps us stay focused. So just breathe. That's the first thing. As soon as I start to sense that someone's gaslighting me, I'm going to pause and I'm going to breathe. After I've taken a breath and collected myself, I'm going to remind myself of the topic I want to address. So I'm going to repeat it. This is what I want to talk. You can even do this word for word. You approach a person and say, the other day when we were with our friends, this is an example. So I would approach the person and say, the other day when we were with our friends, you told that story about when I got in the car wreck and I felt embarrassed. Time out. Quick side note. This manner of presentation is informed, this statement I just said, the other day when we were with our friends, you told that story about when I got in the car wreck, I felt embarrassed. That statement is informed by nonviolent communication. This is a very different way of communicating with people, and it takes some deliberation. I'll be making another video in which I discuss the basic methods of nonviolent communication, so I'm going to encourage you to keep an eye out for that one. But back to being a brat, right? We're going to be a brat. We're going to breathe and focus. Breathe. And now we're going to present our case. The other day when we were with our friends, you told the story about my car accident. I felt embarrassed. And then the person I'm talking to responds, oh, you shouldn't be so sensitive, right? Deflection. They're putting it back on me. So I'm going to repeat what I said exactly word for word. The other day when we were with our friends, you told that story about my car accident, and I felt embarrassed. I'm just going to repeat exactly what I said. You repeat your point, even word for word, until the person acknowledges what you said. So they might go, well, you've said things that were embarrassing to me before. Breathe. Repeat. The other day when we were with our friends, you told that story about my car accident. I felt embarrassed. Normally, I don't recommend repeating yourself more than 3 times, 5 times max, right? What's the big deal? We've all done stupid things, the person responds. The other day when we were with our friends, you told the story about my car accident. I felt embarrassed. So what if the person doesn't acknowledge what you said? You've repeated it 3, 5 times max, and they stay in this defensive mode. It doesn't matter. You've made your case and you've shown that you're not going to take the bait of deflection, minimization, blame shifting, whatever. Now what? Then we have the ask. We're going to ask something of them. We're going to invite the person to do something. When we're out with our friends, would you please only say kind things about me? Ask them for the change that you believe would meet your need. Again, nonviolent communication. Stay tuned. I'm going to make a video about that. But at any point, you're going to make your ask. When we're out with our friends, I'm just asking if you would please just say kind things about me. Don't tell embarrassing stories, please. Right? I'm just going to make that ask. Right? And then I'm going to terminate the conversation. I'm done. There's no point in arguing. There's no point in trying to justify anything from either one of you. Either the other person is going to hear you and respect you, or they are not. There's no point in talking about this any further. I've said what happened. We were out with our friends and you told that story about my car accident. I felt embarrassed. I've said what happened and I've asked for a change. In the future, when we're out with our friends, I want you just to tell kind things about me, right? I've discussed what happened, how I felt about it, and I've asked for change. There's no need to argue at this point. There's no need to explain. There's no need to engage any further. To do this takes some forethought. You have to identify what happened, understand how you feel about it, and come up with a change you would like to request before you ever enter into the conversation with the other person. You can't do this spur of the moment. It takes deliberation, it takes thought, it takes intentionality. And that's what learning nonviolent communication can teach you to do. So again, keep a weathered eye. There'll be a video coming on that. I want to shift, though, to something more difficult. If a person has a pattern of engaging in gaslighting behaviors, we need to think more deeply than just terminating the conversation. At some point, we have to consider terminating the relationship. Only the person at whom the gaslighting behaviors are targeted can make that decision, can make that determination. Some people, they simply won't change. Their internal psychological defenses are so profound that they cannot recognize their own dysfunctional patterns. If you have been a brat, you've breathed, you've repeated, you've asked, and terminated the conversations over and over and over again, at some point it might be helpful to talk to someone about whether you should continue to participate in the relationship. And I'm not saying that you should end a relationship through divorce or breaking up or whatever immediately. I'm saying that if a person has a repeated pattern of these behaviors, one should give leaving the relationship serious thought. For now, this is enough to be getting along with. Gaslighting is a psychological manipulation technique in which a person does not allow any interpretation of reality other than their own. And this person then uses various strategies: denial of reality, distortion, deflection, blame shifting, evidence tampering, projection, and a host of others to get you to lose your sense of self. And when we lose our sense of self, we become dependent on the other, and this leads to control and can ultimately lead to abuse. Understanding that perception and reality are two different things, and that we are capable of misperceiving reality just as easily as we may perceive it correctly, is essential to combating gaslighting. In a healthy relationship, the partners are equal and search for the truth of reality together, while respecting each other's interpretations of reality. In gaslighting, the person engaged in the gaslighting behaviors believes his or her own interpretation of reality is the only one possible. If you question this person's interpretation of reality, they may very well accuse you of gaslighting them. That's the problem with this statement, with this idea, is that it has been manipulated into the idea that you would be gaslighting someone else because you're just seeking the truth. The way to respond to gaslighting behaviors is to have in your mind very clearly the issue that you want to address, the feelings it evokes in you, and a request that you would make of the other. And you state these things, and then you end the conversation. Again, I'm going to invite you to look for my video on nonviolent communication that'll be coming out maybe in the next few weeks to help you understand how to do this better. After you have clearly articulated to yourself what the issue is, how you feel, what you need, and the request you want to make of the other, be a brat. Breathe, repeat, ask, and terminate the conversation. I hope you find this helpful. If you do, I have other videos on my channels. Check that out. And if you want, you can like and subscribe down below. Be well. Know that I wish you nothing but peace, goodness, and harmony in your life. Be well.